In the world of Kenshi, food does not exist. But to a keen mind, that's not a problem. It's a business opportunity. You see, I'm something of a philanthropist. So, like any outstanding member of the community, I decide to solve the issue of starving bandits by opening my very own, ethically sourced, all-natural, non-GMO restaurant. Every meal is sustainable, locally harvested, and absolutely one of a kind. Just don't ask where the meat comes from, and enjoy the flavor. Of course, running a restaurant in Kenshi isn't exactly easy. You can't just open shop and start serving mystery stew. You need a reliable supply chain. So, I did what any responsible entrepreneur would do, and I recruited a few local cannibals, gave them aprons, and told them they're all chefs now. Today's goal? Set up our base of operations, train my staff, and find some fresh ingredients. So, grab a seat, mind your limbs, and welcome to the only restaurant in Kenshi where you might be on the menu. So, with a dream in my heart and a group of barely domesticated cannibals at my side, I spawned into the desert, led by the one, the only John Kenshi. Ignore that other bit. Our journey to the border zone wasn't exactly smooth. Turns out, running a restaurant empire is hard when your employees can't stop eating the inventory. Not even 10 feet past our spawn point, and I was already being brutally beaten by the local bandit gang for being homeless. Long story short, they beat the business plan right out of us. But hey, pain builds character and apparently market experience. After limping halfway across the desert, I finally stumbled into a nearby town, and I sold whatever I could just to afford a bed and a shirt. It wasn't pretty, but every restaurant empire's gotta start somewhere. Ours just happened to start face down in the sand. I finally got some clothes, and let me tell you, I looked fly as hell. Clean regs, brand new hat, and the confidence of a man who thinks fashion equals protection. Feeling unstoppable, I set out towards the border zone. And because I possess the strategic genius of a goldfish, I decided to take a shortcut through Venge, a place famous for two things: laser beams from the sky that vaporize you instantly, and homicidal robot skeletons that hate everything with a pulse. The locals call it certain death. I call it time efficiency. So there we were, me and my gang of reformed cannibals, sprinting through burning sand and dodging orbital death rays like we're in a sci-fi cooking show. Half the crew's on fire, the other half's having an existential crisis, and I'm just praying the robots don't ask what's in our meat pies. I walk away for a second to go loot a house that got burned by the power of the sun, and my entire squad got their ass kicked by robots again, which really is not ideal. And let's just say I get a little crispy there. Oh my god, okay. A little bit close. A little too close than I was expecting there. Please tell me we have medkits. Oh, and a robot ran over because they heard one of my guys screaming after being blasted by the entire power of the sun, and it proceeded to beat the ever-living shit out of all of us. Using all the brain power I could muster, I decided it was best to hide in a small little nook in a hill and heal up for a little bit. But somehow, through sheer luck, getting our ass kicked quite a lot, and some more bad life choices, we actually made progress and made it through Venge. The border zone was in sight, assuming the sun didn't decide to delete us first. And just when I thought I was making progress, the developers came in and gave me another painful lesson, as a giant beak thing tore my party apart and tried to eat one of my members alive. But besides those minor occurrences, I'd say that we had a pretty nice walk to the desert. Nothing too crazy happened. For now. After a long day of running, burning, and almost dying, we finally reached the hub. A city so poor, even the rats look disappointed to be here. It's basically the perfect spot for an up-and-coming restaurant empire. The place is falling apart with crumbling walls, starving drifters, and not a guard in sight. Which is great news for me, because that means nobody's around to ask questions like, what happened to my friend? And Why do you suddenly have 90 pounds of fresh meat in your house? This was truly the land of the free. We left the hub with our pockets slightly heavier and our spirits slightly lower. And instead, we set our sights on Squin, a little town with actual buildings and, more importantly, doors that close. If we were going to open a restaurant, we needed walls that didn't double as communal bedding. So I bought the cheapest house I could find, which costed $7,000, mind you, for a building that didn't even have a roof, but, I guess inflation and all that. Now, you can't just run a restaurant on charm alone. You need customers. And in Kenshi, customers are often the wandering, starving, and easily persuadable type. And there just so happened to be a brand new food farm set up right outside of town. We needed cash.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no.
And let's be honest, no amount of honest labor or hard work ever made anyone rich. So I did what any tasteful entrepreneur would do. I ingratiated myself with the local hivers and stole a baby egg from a pack of highly volatile beak things and led them to their village. This led to a massive slaughter between both the beak things and the hivers, while I sat safely and comfortably from a distance. I was then able to skin the creatures while they were knocked out. This often kills the beak thing. Rinse and repeat with even more angry beak things than before, and I had successfully dismantled an entire village and the nearby ecosystem in a single day. The entire village was getting completely overrun. Beak things were tearing through hivers like a buffet line at closing time. That's what you bastards get for overcharging me on copper. Bodies and limbs were dropping left and right, and things were definitely starting to spiral out of control at the village here. But hey, it's not really my fault now, is it? By the end of it, the hive village was gone, but my restaurant fund, very much alive. Sometimes business just takes a little creative destruction. Turns out my little market correction had some unintended side effects. The beak thing population didn't just stop with the hivers. They spread like a very angry economic ripple straight into a nearby trade caravan. By the time I arrived, the place looked like a discount meal aisle. Guards half-eaten, pack animals running for their lives, and me casually strolling through the carnage like I owned the franchise. I looted what I could, bags, rations, a few teeth for later resale, when I suddenly stumbled across something beautiful. A knocked-out starving bandit, barely breathing, mostly bones, but technically fresh. I stared down at him, and in that moment, I realized something profound. Our restaurant had found its first ingredient. Alright, it's time to cook the starving bandit like Gordon Ramsay. To a professional like me, cooking is a fine art. We first start with a gentle broil of the meat, slowly stripping away all the silly things like arms and legs. Once we have our nice slab of chest meat, we move on to cutting the man meat into neatly divided meat squares. As things stand right now, our meat is ready to be eaten, but to the keen eye, one can see tiny bits of armpit hair and human skin. This, of course, is not ideal for a profitable business. So, we go the extra mile for our products, and begin finely mincing our food into a nice ground meat. We then separate them into patties and carefully cook the meat, giving us our first indistinguishable human patty. Ignoring the silly ethics of eating another man, some people claim that human meat makes you go insane. Tell me, who is more insane? This humble shopkeeper trying to make a honest living, or this slavery-obsessed tyrant who wears pajamas outside his home? That's what I thought. I'm not crazy. They are. Now that we've got the basics down, it's time to try our luck against a group of starving, malnourished bandits, armed with sticks that look more like toothpicks than weapons. And they beat up my entire party. Great. Just great. But all was not lost, because during that awful battle, I managed to break one of their legs in the fight, making this poor sap tonight's biggest loser. Just as things were starting to get back under control, we received visitors. A patrol from the Holy Nation. Apparently, it was mandatory prayer day. And nothing says holy fellowship like 20 men with swords demanding you worship their sun god. In your camp, surrounded by pots of very suspicious meat. But they didn't seem to mind too much. It was becoming increasingly clear that I needed something stronger to fight off these bandits. So I went about recruiting a strong monster the old-fashioned way, and I used an advanced method of place training until he was properly tamed. And just in time too, because a horde of hungry bandits were a little less than pleased with me cooking and eating one of their friends. But lucky for me, we had our new meat wagon on the payroll, and he was very eager to handle customer complaints. With our new shipment of food delivered straight to our doorstep, I was ready to begin mass producing our finest meals. And what a beautiful sight it was. Limbs were flying off left and right, and I could feel the FPS slowly dropping.
Oh my piece.
That's how you know you're really cooking. We finally had enough meat to start production proper. Now with actual stock, consistent supply, and a complete disregard for moral decency. And then I made a miraculous discovery. Turns out, the human body is a multi-purpose resource. The meat goes to the customers. The bones, decorations. The skin? Well, it turns out it can be processed into leather hides. That's right. Not only were we serving meals, we were running a full-scale farm-to-table-to-furniture operation. A group of bandits tried to rob us soon after. But, with my keen mind, I was able to use the gentle art of diplomacy and scare them away once they realized I had several people tied to poles and cut up into itty-bitty pieces. While waiting for our next routine shipment of starving bandits, I decided to sneak back over to the ruins of the High Village and steal what I could, and maybe collect a body or two for processing. The next shipment of starving bandits arrived on schedule, fresh off the road and smelling like bad decisions. It only took a few minutes for my employees to string them up, and I got to sit back and enjoy the spoils of my harvest. It was a glorious sight. You hear those screams of the damned? Now that is the sound of profit. I wasn't done yet. We had received such a massive overflow of starving drifters that I had to build my own prison block. And that's when I came up with a devious idea. I grabbed a freshly cut slice of meat from one of the prisoner's comrades, and I slowly handed it to his malnourished, feeble hands. And he ate it up like the good little prisoner he is. Every last bite. Because in this world, it's eat or be eaten. The prisoners slowly began to lose all the life in their eyes, as they were forced to watch their friends be chopped up and be fed their remains. But slowly, but surely, they begin to develop a craving. And after a couple more days of convincing, they finally broke. I had successfully turned somebody into a cannibal. And that's how we got our first brand new employee for the food store. We were ready to roll and produce more product and get even more employees. Convincing people to become cannibals is always the hardest part of enlightening them. But with this advanced technique known as lying and near-lethal starvation, we can easily persuade anybody to join our cause. Because once you eat one person, you're already a cannibal. So you might as well keep eating human flesh.
I still have the craving.
I have too. I had it even worse than before, I think.
Something really weird is
Hey,
happening
what's
to
going
me.
on? Frank fed us human meat, and we got the hunger.
The hunger?
That's how you become a cannibal, D. Look, you get one taste of delicious, delicious human meat. None of this stuff ever satisfies you ever again for the rest of your life.
I just think that you're overreacting.
Oh, really?
With the extra new hires, we can increase our efficiency even more and process more and more fresh meat for our grand opening. While that's going on, I decide to go on a soul-searching journey through the swamp and buy several pounds of illegal drugs to sell back to the traders when I get home. With my completely moral cash that I've made throughout the game, I decide to finally spruce up the restaurant and prepare for our grand opening, with only the finest tables and chairs that the world of Kenshi has to offer. I loaded our meat bag until it looked like a mobile butcher shop. Human culinary delights stacked to the max, handmade leather hides folded like terrible towels, and definitely not looted weapons rattling in the corner. Oh, and for some variety, I found some corpse worms digging in the dirt. I decided to cook them for some texture. Don't ask. This is the harvest. Protein, profit, and provenance so questionable it should have its own pamphlet. We strapped the beast down, checked its pockets for coin, and set off to turn tragedy into turnover. If ethics were a currency, we were bankrupt, but the coffers looked beautiful. We had all finally arrived at the city of Squin, ready to turn this entire town into unknown cannibals. We dumped all of our items off at the front counter. All of our farming and fine cooking all came down to this. Our inventory was in place. Profit potential calculated. Chaos, mostly contained. The food store was officially operational. I gathered all my employees to celebrate at the restaurant. The brave shopkeeper I'd left behind at the start of the game was beaming. Finally, the restaurant was bustling, alive with purpose, and stocked with enough questionable ingredients to keep us in business for a month. If the customers survived, that is. Unfortunately, the customers weren't exactly the biggest fan of eating meat that I refused to tell them the origins for. I tried diplomacy, I tried charm, I tried waving my hands dramatically, but nothing worked. So I did what any reasonable entrepreneur would do. I discounted it ever so slightly. Sales improved, morality did not. That brought up a new problem. No one had any money. Turns out between me robbing local stores and recruiting travelers with even a scrap of tradable goods, the local economy was, shall we say, in shambles.
The economy is in shambles right now. Taking the NASDAQ marketplace right now? Dow Jones.
What was once a thriving Czech city was now the spiritual twin of the hub. Broke, hungry, and filled with bandits charging the gates like it was an all-you-can-eat buffet. I picked up one of the bandits and carried him to the back, and prepared one final dish, a true house special. The ovens roared, the crew watched in silence, and the smell of success filled the air. We'd come full circle, from starving survivors to thriving entrepreneurs, from hunted to, whatever this was. I looked out at my little restaurant, the blood-stained floorboards, the flickering torches, the menu written in denial and optimism, and smiled. For once, the world was truly cannibals.
Hey guys, I just noticed that you weren't actually subscribed, and if you look under your bed, I'm waiting for you. Subscribe. Subscribe. I love Mason, bro.